Nestled on the outskirts of a small town, the farm sprawls over rolling green hills, a patchwork of fields brimming with crops that sway gently in the afternoon breeze. Sunlight bathes the landscape in a golden hue, illuminating the rustic farmhouse that stands proudly at the heart of this idyllic setting. It's a place where time seems to slow down, allowing for the simple pleasures of life: birds chirping, the rustle of leaves, and the distant sound of cows mooing. The air is crisp and fresh, infused with the scent of earth and blooming wildflowers. This tranquil atmosphere, however, is occasionally punctured by the realities of community living, particularly through the influence of the local homeowners association, HOA. While many residents appreciate the HOA's efforts to uphold property standards and community aesthetics, tensions often simmer beneath the surface. The farmer has cultivated not just crops but a sense of independence and a deep connection to their land. Despite their love for rural life, they have all too often clashed with neighbors, particularly a certain Karen, a notorious figure within the HOA known for her zealous enforcement of regulations. While she believes her intentions are rooted in maintaining order, her overbearing nature tends to ignite more conflict than cooperation among residents. As the day unfolds on this picturesque farm, those tensions are about to escalate in an unforeseen and dramatic way, setting off a chain of events that will thrust both the farmer and Karen into an unexpected confrontation. The farmer, a middle-aged individual named Alex, embodies the spirit of hard work and resilience that farming demands. With calloused hands and a weathered face framed by tousled brown hair, Alex navigates the daily challenges of farm life with an unwavering sense of determination. Years of toil have forged a strong bond with the land, instilling a deep appreciation for its rhythms and seasons. Each sunrise brings new tasks, whether it's tending to crops or caring for the animals, and Alex embraces them all with enthusiasm. Growing up in the city, Alex had always dreamed of escaping the concrete jungle to cultivate a peaceful life surrounded by nature. This dream led to the purchase of the farm several years ago, where they quickly discovered the joys and trials of rural living. Friends and neighbors often describe Alex as warm-hearted and approachable, valuing community ties while fiercely defending personal space and independence. Despite being amiable, Alex is no stranger to conflict. The farmer has found themselves at odds with Karen on multiple occasions over seemingly trivial matters, like fence heights and paint colors, which have exacerbated the already fragile relationship between them. While Alex wishes for a harmonious coexistence, their patience wears thin every time Karen insists on enforcing HOA rules. As Alex prepares for another day on the farm, they remain blissfully unaware that their commitment to self-sufficiency will soon put them at the center of an unexpected confrontation that would challenge their principles and test their resolve. Karen, a prominent member of the homeowners association, lives just down the road from Alex's farm in a house that is the embodiment of HOA standards: meticulously manicured lawns, perfectly painted shutters, and an assortment of garden gnomes carefully arranged to add charm without straying from the prescribed aesthetics. In her late 50s, with sharply styled hair and an impeccable wardrobe, she carries herself with an air of authority and confidence that often rubs neighbors the wrong way. Her belief in maintaining community order is unwavering, but it often veers into obsessive territory. Many residents respect her commitment to the neighborhood. However, they also find themselves on edge around her due to her propensity for nitpicking even the smallest infractions. A loose fence plank? Immediate notification to the HOA. A slightly off-center mailbox? A formal complaint is drafted without hesitation. When it comes to enforcing rules, Karen has little tolerance for leniency or exceptions. Her reputation for being difficult precedes her, but Karen genuinely believes she is acting in the best interests of the community. She takes pride in ensuring everyone adheres strictly to regulations, convinced that it will protect property values and foster a cohesive environment. Yet beneath this veneer of control lies an underlying insecurity, one that stems from a need to feel powerful amid a world that constantly changes around her. As tensions simmer between her and Alex over seemingly trivial disagreements, it's clear that Karen's obsession with rules is about to spark a confrontation that neither would see coming. On a brisk autumn morning, the sun rose over the farm, casting a warm glow across the fields. Alex had just finished milking the cows and was preparing to head inside for a much-needed breakfast. As they reached for the door handle of the farmhouse, an unsettling realization struck: the door was locked, and the keys were still dangling from their belt loop in the barn. With a sigh, Alex made their way back to the barn, hoping to retrieve the spare key. However, as they stepped outside into the vast expanse of their land, they heard a familiar voice carrying through the crisp air. It was Karen, striding purposefully along her meticulously maintained property line, her eyes scanning for any sign of disarray, a loose fence board or an errant weed. "Good morning," Alex called out cheerfully, hoping to ease any potential tension. But Karen's expression shifted as she approached, her gaze narrowing at the sight of Alex standing outside without access to their home. "You really should keep your doors locked, you know," she remarked condescendingly. "I know, I just forgot my keys inside," Alex replied with a chuckle, attempting to downplay the situation. But Karen's eyes glinted with concern masked as authority. "You can't afford to be careless on a farm, it could lead to all sorts of problems," she admonished. As Karen continued her lecture about safety protocols and property regulations, Alex felt irritation bubbling beneath their calm demeanor. Little did they know that this seemingly innocuous moment would spiral into an unexpected conflict that would draw in more than just their immediate neighborhood. As Alex dashed toward the barn, the familiar sound of Karen's voice trailed behind them. "You really should invest in a proper locking mechanism," she called out, her tone dripping with disapproval. This was just another instance of her relentless scrutiny, always eager to remind Alex of their responsibilities as a farmer and neighbor. Annoyed but trying to maintain composure, Alex waved off her comments, hoping she'd take the hint and move on. But Karen was undeterred. "It's for your own good, you know. Think of all the risks, thieves, straying livestock, or worse. You can't afford carelessness out here." Her concern came off more as criticism than genuine care. Alex finally reached the barn door, flinging it open and rushing inside. They rummaged through various items until they finally spotted the spare key tucked away on a shelf. Just as they grabbed it, Karen stepped into the barn, her eyes narrowing as she surveyed the organized chaos of farm tools and feed bags. "What if someone walked in here right now?" she questioned sharply. "This whole place could become a liability." Alex took a deep breath, resisting the urge to snap back. Instead, they replied, "It's my farm, I manage it how I see fit." But anger flickered in Karen's gaze. Feeling boxed in by her persistence and refusal to back down, Alex decided it was best to sidestep another confrontation. "I appreciate your concern, but I really have things under control," they said firmly before stepping back outside, key in hand. Little did they know that this encounter would only escalate tensions further. As Alex stepped back outside from the barn, spare key in hand, they could feel the tension thickening in the air. Karen followed closely, her disapproving gaze unwavering. "You know, this entire situation could have been avoided if you had simply followed the HOA's guidelines regarding property safety," she asserted, crossing her arms as if to seal her point. "I appreciate your concern, but I manage things my way," Alex replied, frustration creeping into their voice. The brief exchange had turned into a battle of wills, and it was clear neither was willing to back down. Karen fumed silently for a moment before speaking again. "You can't expect others to respect your property when you have such a lax attitude." Each word from Karen felt like a jab, and Alex could feel anger bubbling beneath the surface. "This is my home, Karen. I know how to run my farm without your constant interference." Karen's expression shifted from disdain to indignation. "Interference? I'm merely trying to encourage you to meet community standards." With that, she produced her phone, glaring at Alex defiantly. "If you can't manage it yourself, maybe someone else should be involved." Realizing she intended to call HOA members or even law enforcement, Alex's heart raced. What started as an innocuous conversation had escalated into an ultimatum. "You can't be serious," they exclaimed incredulously. But Karen was already dialing, her determination overshadowing any shared decency they once had. This moment marked a tipping point. From here on out, it would be about more than just their differences, it was about principle and pride. With her phone pressed to her ear, Karen's expression hardened as she waited for the call to connect. "Yes, hello? This is Karen Thompson from the Homeowners Association," she began, her voice clipped and authoritative. Alex felt a mix of disbelief and anger wash over them, realizing that she was indeed serious about calling for outside intervention. "What do you mean, police?" Alex interjected, a sense of urgency rising in their voice. "This is a personal matter. You can't just involve law enforcement because of a disagreement." But Karen was unfazed, continuing her conversation while glancing at Alex with an air of triumph. She outlined her version of events, the locked door, the perceived negligence, and her concerns for safety, painting Alex as reckless and irresponsible. Each word felt like a betrayal, further escalating the conflict beyond all boundaries of neighborly disputes. The desire to defend their integrity surged within Alex, but they hesitated, sensing that any outburst would only fuel Karen's fire. "Karen, please. There's no need to escalate this," Alex pleaded, attempting to regain some control over the situation. "I may have locked myself out, but I can handle my own affairs." Karen, however, was already committed to her course of action. "I'm just looking out for our community," she retorted coldly before finally ending the call with a swift click. Moments later, sirens blared in the distance, signaling the arrival of law enforcement. The gravity of the situation began to sink in for Alex, What started as a simple oversight had now become an unwarranted spectacle that could tarnish their reputation and disrupt their peaceful life on the farm. The sound of sirens echoed across the fields, breaking the serene atmosphere of the farm and sending a wave of anxiety through Alex. As two police cars pulled up, their flashing lights illuminating the rustic farmhouse, Alex felt a knot tighten in their stomach. The officers stepped out, assessing the scene with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Is everything all right here?" one officer asked, glancing between Alex and Karen, who stood with her arms crossed, wearing an expression of self-satisfied vindication. Alex opened their mouth to respond, but the words caught in their throat as they struggled to process the absurdity of the situation. "There's no emergency," Alex finally managed to say, trying to maintain composure. "I simply locked myself out of my house while doing chores." Karen interjected almost immediately, "But you don't understand, this is about safety. Leaving your door unlocked is irresponsible." Her voice rang out sharply, firmly positioning herself as the concerned neighbor. The officer nodded, clearly attempting to manage the escalating tension. "We're here to help," he said diplomatically. "But this doesn't seem like a police matter." Alex could feel their frustration boiling over as they turned to Karen. "This is ridiculous. You've made it impossible for me to handle a simple mistake without involving everyone." The officers exchanged glances but remained professional, understanding the nuances of community conflicts like this one. They suggested that Alex try contacting a locksmith while advising Karen not to involve law enforcement in private disputes again. The reality that what began as a minor issue had drawn official attention only added to Alex's mounting frustration and disbelief. As they watched Karen smirk at her apparent success, it became clear that this ordeal was far from over. As the officers began to assess the situation, Alex felt a wave of frustration wash over them. They couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's actions stemmed from something deeper than just concern for safety. It was as if she derived a sense of power from controlling others, using the HOA as a shield for her insecurities. Karen had always been hyper-aware of every detail in her neighborhood, and while her intentions might appear noble, it was increasingly clear that her motivations were rooted in a desire for authority. For Alex, it felt like they were caught in a web of regulations that Karen thrived on enforcing, each rule a means for her to assert dominance over those she deemed less responsible. "Why are you making this such a big deal?" Alex finally asked Karen, their voice steady but tinged with incredulity. "I understand the need for rules, but this is my home, not a public spectacle." Karen's response was immediate and defensive. "If people like you don't take these things seriously, it sets a precedent that could harm property values. We have to protect our community." But Alex couldn't help but think about how much her perspective was skewed by her own compulsion to control. In her mind, enforcing rules equated to maintaining order, yet it only served to alienate neighbors and create unnecessary tension. The officers suggested that both parties take a step back and reassess the situation without escalating it further. While they were there to maintain peace, it became evident that the real issue lay in Karen's obsessive need to regulate every aspect of community life, a need that was now infringing on Alex's right to live freely on their own land. As the officers carefully mediated the escalating tension, they encouraged both Alex and Karen to express their perspectives in a calmer manner. "We understand that you both have valid concerns," one officer remarked, trying to establish common ground. "But we need to find a resolution without turning this into an ongoing conflict." Alex took a deep breath, attempting to calm their racing heart. "Karen, I respect that you care about our community, but involving the police over a locked door seems extreme. I assure you, I'm capable of handling my own affairs without constant oversight." Karen shifted uncomfortably, her rigid posture softening slightly. "I just want what's best for everyone," she replied defensively, though there was a hint of uncertainty in her voice. The officers suggested that perhaps they could agree on some ground rules moving forward. They proposed that Alex keep the lines of communication open with Karen regarding farm activities, ensuring she felt informed without infringing on Alex's independence. In turn, they advised Karen to consider the impact of her actions and how they might affect neighborly relationships. After some back-and-forth discussion, both parties began to realize that neither wanted ongoing strife, they simply had different interpretations of responsibility and community involvement. The officers facilitated this realization and encouraged them to shake hands as a sign of goodwill. As Karen reluctantly extended her hand to Alex, there was an unspoken acknowledgement of compromise. While tension still lingered beneath the surface, it became clear that finding common ground would ultimately benefit both neighbors in the long run. With the police departing and the atmosphere calming slightly, Alex felt a small sense of relief. Perhaps this was not the end after all, but rather a new beginning for coexistence. In the quiet aftermath of the confrontation, Alex found themselves reflecting on the events that had transpired. Standing on the porch of their rustic farmhouse, they gazed out over the fields, the beauty of the landscape juxtaposing the tension they had just experienced. It struck them how a simple act of forgetting a key could spiral into such chaos, drawing in neighbors and law enforcement into a personal matter. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the ground, Alex pondered the fragile dynamics of community living. Karen's actions, while frustrating, were emblematic of a deeper struggle within herself. It became apparent that her incessant need to control was driven by her own insecurities, fear of disorder, and an overwhelming desire for stability. This understanding softened Alex's anger to a degree. It was clear they were not just dealing with a neighbor but rather a person grappling with her own challenges. While the resolution offered a glimmer of hope for improvement, Alex knew that trust would take time to rebuild. They felt a cautious optimism about navigating this new chapter, recognizing that communication would be key to their coexistence. This experience served as a reminder that conflict often reveals underlying truths about ourselves and those around us. Perhaps it was more than just about rules, it was about finding balance between independence and community, acceptance and accountability. As they embraced this lesson, Alex felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, aiming not only to protect their farm but also to foster a more harmonious relationship with Karen and the other members of their community. As time passed on the farm, the initial chaos gradually transformed into a landscape of learning and growth for Alex. Each day brought not only farming responsibilities but also opportunities for engagement with the community. Although tensions with Karen remained unspoken, the underlying truce enabled Alex to observe her in a new light. From her meticulous gardening to her interactions with neighbors, Alex began to understand that behind Karen's sometimes abrasive exterior was a genuine concern for their shared environment. Determined to foster a more positive relationship, Alex took small steps towards greater openness. One afternoon, while working in the garden beside the fence separating their properties, Alex decided to extend an olive branch. "Hey, Karen! How's your garden coming along?" they called out, hoping for a friendly exchange. The surprised look on her face softened as she responded enthusiastically about her latest planting. These moments of connection served as reminders that communication could break down barriers built long ago. Slowly but surely, Alex found themselves engaging more with the community at large, attending HOA meetings and participating in local events. This proactive approach not only diminished the previous animosities but also allowed them to contribute positively to discussions about maintaining both freedom and responsibilities. Reflecting on the journey, Alex understood that seemingly simple conflicts could hold profound lessons about cooperation and understanding. They were reminded that every relationship, no matter how strained, carried the potential for growth if nurtured with patience and respect. With this newfound perspective, Alex felt more ready than ever to cultivate not just their farm but also a sense of belonging and harmony within the broader community.